Ever wish a podcast would explain how to get better faster from the standpoint of longevity, biohacking, and personalized functional medicine? Co-hosts Dr. Jason Bradley and James Chester, along with executive producer Rachel Bradley, bring you the Get Better Faster podcast. Their mission is radically simple: to revolutionize health by connecting people with the experts, technologies, and protocols that mainstream medicine ignores. Because people deserve to get better faster.
Hey everybody, hello. I am Dr. Jason Bradley, and along with my co-host James Chester and our executive producer Rachel Bradley, we want to welcome you to another exciting edition of the Get Better Faster podcast. Today we're joined by Dr. Gabe Roberts, a revolutionary healer who's helping people around the world resolve chronic illnesses, autoimmune conditions, resolve pain, and mystery health problems by addressing their root cause, repressed emotions trapped in the subconscious mind. As the co-founder of Holographic Manipulation Therapy and author of 4 groundbreaking books, including From Pain to Purpose and The Way to Wholeness, Dr. Gabe bridges the gap between mind, body, and spirit healing. He holds a doctorate in chiropractic, is certified in functional medicine, and specializes in conditions that conventional medicine often can't even explain nor resolve. If you've been struggling with especially chronic pain, but also autoimmune issues, digestive problems, or really any health challenge that seems to have no clear cause, this conversation could change your life. Welcome, Dr. Gabe.
Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity, James and Dr. Jason. It's great to be here.
Yeah, getting that introduction sparks up a lot of interest for me as a podcast host and as somebody that is a visionary within the understanding of the way the body works. I've had a chance to talk to over 1,400 people in the past 8 years about health. And I had you on our other podcast, Chiro Hustle, about a year ago now, I think. And we just barely scratched the surface. So I think that this conversation with you today is going to be more of an expose share session with you, where you're actually featured as the expert and we get a chance to have a fluid format with you. But the origin story of your journey of how you got to where you are today is really interesting to me. You dedicated your life to helping people heal through subconscious mind. And personally, I've done a lot of work recently with neuroemotional technique. I've done a lot of work with neuromastery. I've done some Reiki work. I've done some access bars work. So I've gone down the simply, some people think, woo-woo pathways. But I think it's also helped me tremendously too. So just kind of pre-framing that out, can you tell us about your journey and when did you first realize that trapped emotions were the hidden cause behind so many chronic illnesses?
Sure. I will say that I would say my journey probably started when I started learning and becoming aware. And I had a friend that was a chiropractor, and he had a pamphlet in his office that said, "The power that made the body heals the body."
Amen.
Yes.
And that was really intriguing to me because at the time I had just gotten out of the Marine Corps and I was a paramedic and I was a personal trainer. So I was really learning about nutrition and helping people, get fit physically, ignoring most of the other things, but helping people get fit and become more athletic and things like that. And I had a tremendous commotion going on in my deeper mind, and I had no idea what it was. I don't even think I knew what subconscious mind or deeper mind or unconscious, any of that meant. This was years after having a very traumatic childhood, becoming an addict to everything from meth to you name it by the time I was 20. And I needed to get on the right track. So I joined the Marine Corps looking for leadership because I had never been around my father. I never knew any kind of real ideal male leader growing up in my life. And so I went there for leadership, got it, and got my head on straight. But as far as the commotion, it was like a storm brewing under the surface. And being a paramedic, it kind of proliferated that. Being a Marine, it proliferated even more. And when I saw that pamphlet about the power that made the body heals the body, there was something that deeply resonated with me on that. And that's what got me interested in learning more about that. And that's kind of where the journey started.
Gabe, I think that's an amazing story. And I actually didn't I feel like somehow we've known each other for a while, but we've never really dug into that origin story. So thank you for sharing all of that. And I'm wondering, because you've worked with a lot of people from a broad brushstroke of different backgrounds, including some people very near and dear to me, my own family. So thank you for helping people out that I know. That said, what I heard is a story of, like you said, a very high performing individual, a very smart individual, a very dedicated individual that also struggled with, and I'm just going to use a broad term here, but some darkness, and turned to maybe some choices that weren't that healthy, including addictions. And then, thank God you found some structure and found your way out, and you turned that pain into purpose, and now you're helping so many other people. I've noticed with my own practice, certainly you and I, have very different approaches to the way we think about things and do things. However, caveat to that, the longer I do my job, the more I think you're closer to the truth than any of us. But that all said, I work with a lot of people as well, and I hear the same story from high performing people, where they're drinking or they're abusing drugs or sex or gambling or whatever addictive behavior it happens to be, and they're in that darkness. Do you see that with the high performing people, or is this something that is pervasive even beyond that? I tend to see it, like I said, maybe my bias or my lens is different, but I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
It's very common in everyone, but I will say high performers are probably a little more prone to it. I see that in a lot of high profile people that are even celebrities. I see that in high profile doctors. They even have a mark on their face. So I'm also trained in being able to look at people, and I can diagnose certain things, especially repressed emotions and trauma, just by what happens on the face, because I'll just kind of keep this simple. We're holographic beings of light. Right? That's what our, at the subatomic level, that's what we really are. And if you can imagine consciousness flowing into us, okay, now imagine white light flowing into a prism and being refracted into like a rainbow, right? That's essentially what happens to us. Consciousness flows into us. White light flows into a prism. Now, if that prism has a defect, a scratch, or an area that's warped, bent a bit, or dirty, well, obviously it's going to impact the light coming out of it. And we can see that on people's, and not only their behaviors, their characteristics, their traits, but also on when we look at their face. And high profile people that have something missing in their life have a line right here, deep line. And sometimes it gets very, very deep. And an example of that recently is I was next to Gabor Mate. And if you know anything about Gabor Mate, when he was an infant, he was actually handed off to basically save his life. He was handed to a complete stranger by his mom because of the Germans occupying the country he was in during that time in history, right? And so what happened to Gabor Mate, and I have a resonant with him because of the pain he's carried his whole life, is somebody that I've learned a lot. I've taken nuggets. There's same things I don't agree with. There's things I do agree with, just like anyone else. But I had a chance to be with him in person, and I noticed this massive deep line. And that always shows that something is missing. And when that's happening, it's going to drive us to try to have perfect work and everything else. It's going to make us be high achievers. It's going to make us do a lot of what you could say high performance work. But the problem is Alex Hormozzi's another one, right? Ed Milet, Grant Cardone. If you look at these people, great minds, but nothing is ever satisfactory for them. They're just keep continuous driven. And I've hired Ed Milet as a coach before, and he was talking to Tiffany and I through Zoom. And he literally said this: I'm sinking millions of dollars into this island for my family. And I'm pacing back and forth on the beach thinking, any moment I could lose this. To me, when you're worth $100 million and you have that kind of mindset, something's missing, right? Something's missing. So it is very common in high performers.
That's super interesting. I don't even know where to start to unpack that, but I want to go back to the thing that really got my wheel spinning. You said consciousness, think of it as a light coming into a prism and it's being refracted. And, there could be a scratch on the prism and it could obviously with the light that's being refracted out. I don't want to use the word defect. I'm trying to not use that word, but I mean there's an aberration in the way that consciousness is expressed.
I think there's a good word, not to interrupt you, Jason.
No, please.
Injury, not defect, but
Okay. Okay. So there's, and the injury manifests and there's a disruption in that light or that outpouring, right? So to speak. I love that visualization. It's very interesting to me. I also have the same visualization. And then I'm going to hand this over to James because I know he brought this up in our green room meeting that I want to jump into. Listen, I'm as ordained as anybody that sent $5 to someone online, right? So I don't want to claim to be a theologian or anything like that. But my life has led me to understand that, just like you said, we are all one. Nikolai Tesla, is saying this at the end of his life. We are all one. I think we come this light that, you said in our subatomic expression. I mean, we're all light, right? All these light beings, almost like a fractal of a bigger light or a hologram of a larger light or a larger source. I think some people might call that source God. Some people might call that source spirit or universe or whatever it is. And we can name those things too, with named gods, right? But I mean, ultimately, what I heard from you is there's a consciousness that we're downloading from above, almost like above down, that comes inside us and expresses it through us from the inside out. And if there's an injury to that prism, we don't get to express the full potential and beauty of that light. Did I understand that correctly? And is there a spiritual burn here as well? It's not just thoughts and emotions. There's something bigger. Did I pick up on that?
I think you expressed it beautifully. That's exactly right. There is we're fragments of a bigger light, and that light always flows through us, right? And it has a tremendous amount of different interpretations and names you could give it. 0 point field is kind of the one I prefer with my own clients, but it's based on the reality that we live in. We are conditioned from day one to look at physical things, separation. There's separation between the space between us right now. There's separation between the space between my hands right now. And we're conditioned to operate in a world that works from separation. In many ways, it's conditioned and proliferated in us. Just the way James was mentioning politics a moment ago. That's polarizing. That's separation. And there's a number of that, from organizations to groups you may be in, to skin color, to Democratic, Republican parties, to sports teams, whatever it is. We're heavily conditioned in a society that favors that separation. And the more separate we are, the farther we get away from that universal 0 point field. And the reality is, that's an illusion, by the way. It's all an illusion. The reality is that most fundamental level, we're all one. We're all combined. If you think about, you see these in metaphors, you see these in nature, you see these in us. Think about this, Dr. Jason, in embryology class. I'm going to throw some technical stuff out for a moment, but you'll understand. At one point in the human embryo is 3 different separate tissues: ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. That's all is made up of what the human body is at that time. And the ectoderm becomes the nervous system and the skin. It separates and becomes 2 separate entities from one piece. And so, in other words, if a person's very stressed out, you can see it on their skin because it had that unique connection at one point. Well, guess what? We all still share that one connection that goes up to one focal point that goes from matter to energy. We all still share that. And there's a tremendous amount of scientific evidence that shows this. I mean, even though I talk about spiritual things, and I know James earlier said the woo-woo, he's went down the rabbit hole of what you could call woo-woo. I think like a scientist, I'm very curious, and I'm always willing to, like any good scientist, dismiss what I had before when I find something that gives me a little more clarity or is a better idea than what I held before. In fact, when I talk about evidence of this one that we all originate from, did you know that telepathic abilities is actually 6 times more scientifically verifiable statistically 6 times more verifiable than any kind of aspirin doing anything to prevent a heart attack. That the effect of an aspirin preventing a heart attack is real enough statistically for Bayer to advertise it on the side of their pill bottles, right? But telepathic is 6 times more verifiable than that. And when we talk about those things, it can be considered woo-woo to the masses.
I want to jump in quick. Really, this is the biology of belief. Bruce Lipton for it. And that's what it brings me back to.
Great mentor. He's a great mentor.
Yeah. And as I hear you talking and Dr. Jason interacting with you, talking about this this downline injury of how we actually emanate energy. And I can't help but think of the basics, thoughts, traumas, and toxins. And it really makes me think about how to talk to the common man about this topic, because that's a place I get to play on this team. Is most of people walk around dimmer switches and their lights are dim and they don't know it. They think that they're fully illuminating in this world. And they think that they're refracting their light source as most beautifully as they know how to. But I'm sure, your specialty is helping people with mystery illnesses, autoimmune conditions, chronic fatigue, unexplained pain. I call it the dimmer switch now. You guys called it an injury. But what do you see happening in our society that's creating this epidemic of conditions that conventional medicine can't seem to solve?
Well, it's unwise to ever give it one distinct problem, right? It's unwise in any kind of medicine or healing arts or functional medicine to say, okay, this is the actual cause of it, because people are very complex. And in my work, what I see most successful is whenever I have people help. And this is what has been verified through various literature. And a man named Dr. Jeffrey Reniger, who's a prophecy mentor of mine, he in fact said that the people that actually heal from all various types of different illnesses, chronic illnesses, even ones that are so aggressive that there's very small percentage of recovery, something like aggressive pancreatic cancer, for example, right? It all comes down to the person's perception, them changing how they feel about themselves and how they feel about the world. And so that's where I usually start with people. And because when you say trauma, thoughts, toxins, the most powerful one of those 3, without a doubt, is thoughts.
Yeah, I figured you're going there.
Because because of what we can know in quantum physics, there's 2 realities that our world is made of. One of which is the one we're completely bathed in. It's run by government, any kind of I'm going to say about 98% of the research that's done, because there's 17,500 higher level universities across the globe. 50 of them study mind-body connection. So as you can see, that's why it's considered woo-woo. But the ones that are studying it are coming up with amazing, amazing content about the mind and the body and what thoughts actually do and how thoughts influence much more than we ever previously knew.
I think I did not know that number of universities is so low. Looking at that, I mean, that's incredible to me, especially as from, again, in the scientific literature, it seems to be unfolding that, I mean, even just forget about health and medicine, but just looking at the quantum physics world all by itself, I mean, what is reality anymore? I mean, I don't even know. I get confused on what that means. For our listeners, I don't even want to go down a rabbit hole of this, but just look up the way thoughts manifest reality. It's interesting stuff. But nonetheless, I want to jump back to the mind-body connection. It's very not well studied, but what is studied, like you said, it's showing more than promise. It's really unfolding our understanding of the mechanisms of the way reality works. But bringing it back a little bit, what is the biggest misconception that people have about how emotions can create physical illness or these illnesses? Where's the disconnect? How can we help fill that in for people?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about thoughts, and then we'll talk about emotions. Probably one of the biggest lies that has been sold to us is that our thoughts and our emotions don't have any power. So many times we're working with people, and it's really hard for them to grasp. They might say so on a superficial level. Yeah, I get it. I'm always saying I always get it cold at this time of year, or knowing my luck, the dang thing's going to break whenever it is. So a big misconception is they don't understand what the power of thoughts have, right? And this has been laid out not only in biblical scriptures, but ancient wise men traditions, things for since the birth of humanity. People have known about this power within us that we can influence using our thoughts. Now, when I say thoughts, I don't mean the thoughts we're aware of. I mean the deeper seated feelings that we have deep within us that communicates the language of what the universe understands. So ask, believe, receive. Well, there's many people that ask. They don't really know how to believe. They're in conflict about that, and therefore they don't receive, so they kind of dismiss it, right? So the biggest misconception is people don't understand what their thoughts really do and what their thoughts really are. And when it comes to emotions, this universal intelligence gave us emotions for a reason, and therefore all emotions are precious. Every one of them have a purpose. Every emotion is precious. Even anger. Anger is meant to be a shield that gives you protection from abuse, from people that are crossing your boundaries, that are people that are treating you poorly. How many times do we have people in our life that treat us poorly, that kind of take advantage of us in a way, and there's a deep-seated thing inside of us that we just can't bring it into ourselves to cut them away. So if all emotions are precious, what happens is between the years of 0 to 5, when we're learning the most we ever learn in our entire life, including conception. At the moment of conception is actually when that's when we learn the most. It's not after birth. It's in the actual womb itself is when we're actually learning the most about life. When we're learning and downloading stuff, we might have no clue at that time what it is, but it's like we're putting a puzzle together, a jigsaw puzzle. And by the time we hit 5, that puzzle is fully complete on who we are, our place in the world. Is life threatening? Is life for me? Is money good? What's love? What is actual love? Is love distant criticism, or is it welcoming? But during that time, and this is global, there's certain emotions that we learn that we aren't able to express in front of our parents. And each one has a varying degree, whether it's stop your crying, or I'll give you something to cry about, or the real common phrase, children are meant to be seen and not heard. There's a tremendous amount of variation in each person, but we all have that to agree. There's certain emotions that we aren't allowed to express. And our brain, through what's called conditioned aversion, learns at this very, very young primal age that certain emotions are not to be expressed. If we do express this emotion, it means that we now have a separation from our parent. Our parent gets upset. Our parent can put us in timeout. Our parent, is even more stressed out if we cry, if we yell, if we get angry. And there's a number of things that our parents can tell us, good boys don't get angry, good little girls don't cry, these little things. And they don't realize that this exquisitely sensitive brain is taking all this in and linking emotions as dangerous. These emotions are dangerous. And why are they dangerous? Because if I express them, I run the risk of separating from mom and dad. And to a child, 0 to 5, that is a death sentence, right? So they learn that certain emotions are dangerous, and their brain learns that these things are dangerous. And as they grow into adults decades later, events, circumstances, people, situations come into their life that would warrant the necessity of expressing these emotions. And yet what happens is that brain has never forgotten. That brain remembers, well, if I express this emotion, it's bad. So the body will actually suppress that. It'll do anything it can to protect us, but it's a communication that's gone wrong. Okay. To protect us from these dangerous emotions, our body will eventually start creating symptoms, because if there's anger that's starting to come up, and your brain says, no, we can't go there, it'll actually create a symptom of heartburn or something else. And now our attention, which is our most valuable currency, goes over here, and the emotion gets kind of swept under the rug.
I want to just run with that. I want to share a quick anecdote that we can all psychoanalyze off camera. And then I have a question about emotions and symptoms. When you were chatting about feeling separated from your parents and, learning behaviors and really being, I don't want to use the word program, but program, to a certain extent by everything around us, parents and society and all of it. I instantly, you might have seen me smile. I recalled this, what I think is a humorous story. My parents threw a dinner party and, all the Chamber of Commerce people were there, and it was like a really big deal in their house. And, everyone's dressed nice and whatever. But I, being the child, not even seen or heard, I was, like, do not go near the adults, stay out of that part of the house, stay up in your room. That's where it was. And I don't know where Dr. Gabe, I don't know where I got this idea. You're going to dive into my subconscious on this. I'm teasing. Those little Easter eggs, those plastic Easter eggs that you can break in half?
Yep.
Okay. I broke a couple in half. And I don't know where I got this idea, why I did it, no recollection of it. But I walked downstairs and I put those on my chest. And I walked around saying, look at my boobies, look at my boobies, look at my boobies. And everyone thought it was funny except my parents. They were appalled. They were like, it was like the worst thing that anyone on the earth could have ever done to them. And I got pulled into the kitchen and lectured about how bad it was. And I don't even remember what they said, but I remember I was like really traumatized by it. Like it was really bad. And, to this day, I'm sure this plays into it when there's a movie or a TV show and people are getting intimate or heavy. I literally do this thing where I cover up my eyes. Like I don't want to see it. Like, I don't know. So there's a connection there. That's my funny anecdote. We can all psychoanalyze that off camera. All of that said, you talked about emotions and physical symptoms. And I want to talk about a symptom that I have that I think, reading statistics, I think it's 80% of adult Americans are going to experience at least one bout of this every single year. It's back pain. I have, and I think a lot of people do have back pain. I have low back pain. And I've heard all the way back from whenever Dr. John Sarno, I think his name was, way back when, that was like, your back pain's due to your emotions. And everyone's like, that guy, especially chiropractors, that guy's kooky. It's about the subluxation and this, and whatever. And chiropractors were just pissed off and I'll get out at Dr. Sarno saying this emotional connection. The longer I do my job, I said, like I said, whether it's, pain or diabetes or this or that or the other thing, energy, I keep coming back to emotion and those pieces. Can you connect the dots with specifically what emotions go into pain? Is it a common emotion or is it complex? What are you seeing with pain? And then what are we going to do about it?
Okay. So each person is as unique as their own fingerprint when it comes to these things. I will say one of the most common emotions that create pain are feelings of guilt. So guilt, okay, just like fear, never sits idle with the brain. What I mean by that, it does not sit still. If a person has fear, if a person has guilt, the brain takes forward action, usually and not so good. So anytime a person has fear, the brain has already taken a forward action, even if they're just sitting there. Guilt, the same way. Guilt usually means, okay, I've done something wrong and I need some kind of punishment for that. The brain will, take that and move it forward as pain. But here's the thing. I pay money and read the newest literatures, the scripts, the journals that come out on pain. And what I'm learning about pain is completely different than anything that most doctors are understanding. First off, when a person has chronic pain of any kind, here's the thing. We have to agree, get better faster, right? We have to agree on one thing. The body only knows how to heal. Can we move forward with that agreement in place? The body only knows how to heal, right? So if we look at something like a chronic symptom, and this is where detective work comes in, because whenever I sit down with clients, I tell them this. I say, you're theoried out. You've went all the different routes that have theories behind them. This theory. We take anti-inflammatories. If we do this, we do this. And I said, we theoried out. We have to work on the cold hard facts, because this knowledge, applied knowledge, is what's going to set you free. So the body only knows how to heal. When it comes to chronic pain, and this is really fascinating, Dr. Jason, the body only knows how to heal. And after around 12 weeks, whatever mechanism is there in that certain area of the body is fully healed, whether it's a joint, whether it's ligament, cartilage, whether it's muscle, nerve, bone, whatever it is. After 12 weeks, that injury is healed. But yet the pain can continue. And what's happened is this is from what I call neuroplasticity gone wrong. Wherever we focus our attention, earlier I said our attention is the most valuable currency we have. Here's a fact. Wherever you focus your attention grows. Wherever you focus your attention on, most of the time, what I mean by that is most of the time through the day, grows and intensifies and gets stronger. People that have pain, I always ask them, how often are you thinking about your pain? How often do you feel like you have to fix your pain? How often are you getting frustrated with nothing's worked and you're spending a lot of money on procedures and you get short-term relief? So trying to focus on it, trying to fix it, trying to figure it out. These all send a certain message to the brain, and the brain will make a meaning of it. And that meaning is this: something's wrong, I'm broken. There's also called the nocebo effect, which is huge, especially amongst my colleagues, even in functional medicine. We tend to tell people things without understanding their exquisitely sensitive brain that's always learning and adapting. We can tell them you have chronic parasites, or you have toxins, or you have adrenal fatigue. And, these things build up as beliefs inside of them. For example, anyone that's ever had fibromyalgia, the minute they hear a doctor say, you have fibromyalgia, I ask them over and over, how much hope do you have? How much hope do you have after that? Squash, zero, right? So when it comes to chronic pain, what happens, and this is real fascinating, after the pain, after 12 weeks, the pain is no longer it's no longer activating pain receptors in the brain from that, wherever the pain is back, in this case, back. It's no longer to your back, to the pain centers in your brain. After 12 weeks, it's actually going into the area of the brain that has to do with learning and memory, which means this pain is not coming from your back. It's coming from your brain, creating it through learned and memory. And you can see the pattern in people that have chronic pain. It's because they put so much attention on it. Their neuroplastic connections in the brain have done this over and over and over. And now that pain is on speed dial.
Well, it does. And it brings me to a couple things that you said. And I love this show because it gives us a chance to unpack and reestablish a new flow. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of reestablish is it's facts, not feelings. And that's what you said. You're like, we got to get down to the facts of what's going on. And we've coded you out. Like, you've had anything that somebody could have said that you have an issue of. We've now have to go into the facts and tell you what it is. My last statement here before Jason jumps in is the emotional state and nervous system regulation hinge on how much thoughts and trauma are in our subconscious priming, and what sits back and runs the show when we're just this human body running around doing things. There's a lot going on in the machine or in the person that we have zero understanding of. Like, why do we have a shadow? Well, shit, I don't know. It's the way the sun shines on us and we look down, there's a shadow of ourselves. Why does the sun come up the way it does? Why does it set the way that it does? Why do we get storms sometimes? Well, it's just weather. But I think that we have these types of patterns inside of our bodies too. Because just because you have back pain doesn't mean it's going to be back pain like every day. Like in 3 to 4 days, like you said, a 12-week cycle, it clears up and you go back to physical fitness again. But it doesn't mean that issue is resolved.
Yeah. No, you're totally right on that. And I think, just to kind of jump back to what Dr. Gabe was saying, and I said that the longer I do my job, whatever that job is these days, the longer I do that, the more I realize that it is subconscious patterning. And I always call it the false narrative that we're telling ourselves all the time, that programming. So I'm leery. This is me. I'm going to use not big words here, but just words to catch all again. I see people coming in with an identity. It could be a diagnosis, but it's really an identity. And I'm going to use a bad word that's going to piss a lot of people off, but it's kind of a victim identity. It really is like, I'm a victim, and they've been labeled. Someone with authority with a white coat, said, look at what you have. You have fibromyalgia. And I always ask people, like, y'all know what that means, right? It means that fibro, my fibers, and myo, my muscle, algia hurt. You've got, like, it's this big name that means I'll edit myself, my flipping muscles and joints hurt, and if I poke on your muscles and joints, yeah, they hurt. And now you have fibromyalgia. It's a named disease, and look how bad it is. Anyway, go down that road. People start to identify with it. It's a ridiculous diagnosis, everybody.
No, I mean, here's the thing, Jason, you're right. In fact, I even have literature from Ivan Ilitich, 1979, said that the diagnosis that doctors give people are detrimental. And I see that.
Yeah.
I see that all the time, because it's, here's the thing. If a person has a very degree of symptoms and they're looking for an answer, and a doctor says, I figured that out, you have this, the relief they have that finally they have an answer is short-lived.
Yeah.
Okay. And just to kind of hit on what James was talking about, if you have an injury, and even more, this is more fascinating. Sometimes, like your low back pain you were talking about, Dr. Jason, did you ever injure it? Have you ever injured your back?
Probably 12 too many times. You know what I mean? I push my body. So
where it hurts, you've actually had an injury, like sports injury or something like that.
Yeah.
In that spot? Okay. It is a myth that old injuries still hurt, by the way. Okay. Yeah. That's a definite myth. We oftentimes say it's scar tissue or something else, but it is, in fact, pain that the brain learned to keep on. Now, if you were asking, because this is what you were asking a moment ago, and I want to give our listeners a chance to kind of maybe apply this themselves to get real answers. Okay. You asked, well, what emotional component could be there? And I said, each one's their own unique individual. I said, it's as unique as your own fingerprint. So if there was an emotional component, the only person that would know that is you. But the only way you're going to know that is to understand you have two minds. You have one that's a rational, lying brain. And that's where we come up with the stories and things that make sense to us, but actually have no truth in what actually is going on. Okay. A woman comes to me and she says, get this. She says, I'm afraid my husband's going to leave me. Every time I go to the store, I see a pretty woman, and I just go on guard, like my husband's going to, ditch me and go for him, go for this woman. And I go, do you have any evidence to back this up? Or is this just something inside of you is out of control that is wrong? She goes, no, my husband doesn't even notice the woman. This woman doesn't even look our direction. And yet I'm on guard. Okay. That's what she thinks her husband's going to leave her. We asked the boss to do the talking through a regression to cause work. We go all the way back. She's 3 years old and her older sister was playing with her in the playground. And she climbed up to the top of one of these real tall slides, stayed up there, and was scared to go down. And her little sister had already made it down the bottom of the slide and says, come on, let's go. Come on, let's go do some other stuff. This little girl's scared. Her sister left her. Her sister walked away from her and went to a swing and left this little girl, 3 years old, on top of a slide. And the brain learned, I could be left anytime. I could be left anytime. It comes, it translates out later, decades later. I could be left anytime. I could be left anytime. So we have to understand we have a rational lying brain that, as much as we dig into it, will likely not get to the root of what the problem is. And then we have a deeper part of us that knows the answer. And that part is only going to answer this way, Jason. It answers first. It answers correctly. Will not make a bit of logical sense. You'll think you're actually making it up and you'll have an urge to want to edit it. So let me ask you this. When you think about your low back pain, what emotion comes up first impression?
Without even thinking, it's interesting. It's fear. Like it wasn't even a question. It's the first word that popped in my head.
See that?
Yeah.
That's the intelligence within us. That's the innate. Now, innate intelligence is one of those things that I just utilize all the time with my clients, because I'm like, if there's an answer for you to heal, it's not me and it's not you. It's something else above and beyond. It's something else. When we think of innate intelligence as chiropractors, we think of it something inside of us. What I can tell you is it's everywhere in everything. It's not just within our bodies, it's in nature itself. And if you look at what's called the golden ratio, Fibonacci sequence, you can see matter converting into coherence. You can see it in nature. You can see it in blood vessels. You can see it in tree roots. You can see it in galaxies. You can see it on our own eye. It's something within. That's the source. That right there is the 0 point field, where if you look at how the universe is laid out, everything comes down to this: waveform information, vibration, energy, and frequency, right? And if you could keep going up the scale of those vibrations, they get faster and faster and faster. What happens is they cross a barrier of the speed of light. Once they cross the barrier of the speed of light, they're no longer tangible to our senses. That means you can only go there with your awareness. When you go there with your awareness, where you put your attention grows. If you put your attention on this higher intelligence, your nervous system automatically updates. Your nervous system automatically goes into coherence and order. It automatically goes into order. We don't have to do anything. It does it all in itself. Problem is, we're putting our attention on the wrong things.
Well, I think this is very helpful for people listening, just because number one, pain, chronic conditions, I've been told over the years, it's called issues in the tissues. Like there's something going on inside of there, and it's a little bit deeper. And it's not just we're going to correct the osseous adjustment and we're going to remove the interference in the nervous system, allow the body to go back to homeostasis. There's a lot of high level stuff you guys are talking about when it comes to like repression of emotion, learned behavior at a young age, how we become socially engaged and primed to think that our symptoms are our futures and that's what our life is going to be. But I wanted to get a bit more granular with you. One of the things that I know that you've really have helped a lot of people with is your holographic manipulation therapy. I think it's time for us to jump in onto that topic. It sounds revolutionary. How does this approach differ from traditional therapy or even other mind-body healing modalities?
Okay, great question. The things that we'll say this, the things that we accumulate as we start our journey on earth between conception and how the adults we are today, right? We pick up and accumulate and learn a lot of things. And these things, like we're naming off conditioned aversions and diagnoses and everything else you could buy, the illusion of separation, these things cloud our ability to put our awareness on this 0 point field. This is what I tell the clients. The answer is there. The answer is there because as that frequency increases and it becomes a straight line, everything in our known universe originates from it. Now, with our big brains and with our valuable currency of awareness, we can put our awareness on that and we actually combine with a higher consciousness. We actually link up to a higher consciousness. Holographic manipulation therapy is a way to go in and clear out all the static, the bugs, the white noise, the things that keep us from putting our attention where we want to go. Think of it this way. If I lit a candle, if I could completely darken out where I'm at in this room that you're visualizing, this room, my background, if I could just blacken it out, turn everything off, just put a huge cover over the window, and it's completely dark and I lit a candle in here, we'll say this pin is a candle, and I had a sign on the wall, and I asked you, hey, Dr. James, read the sign. You'd say, I can't. And the reason why you would probably think is there's not enough light. That's not the truth. The truth is the light is dispersed everywhere just unevenly in different places. Now, if I could take this same candlelight and confine it to a beam and put it right on the sign, you'd read it with ease. So think of the difference between like a lamp and a laser. What holographic manipulation therapy does is it allows people's awareness to go from candlelight to laser so they can focus on this 0 point field, so they can put their attention where it needs to go. And then this valuable, creative, loving intelligence that created the universe can step in and do its job. but it's stressful life events, childhood traumas, nocebos like we're talking about, diagnoses, seeing too many doctors. When a person has a whole list of doctors, their brain is in a state of something's wrong with me. I'll never heal. I'll be like this forever. And all of that clouds their ability to put their attention where it needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
I have to jump in again. I think of it kind of, if I paint a picture how you did the dark room with the light and the candle, I look at it from a fish tank scenario. And everybody's had a fish tank at some time in their life, I think. And if you don't clean the fish tank, what happens? It gets gunky water, and there's stuff that starts.
Finding Nemo in the end of that, the aquarium.
Yeah, in the aquarium, like it gets gunk on the walls, on the glass, and the fish don't really know. Maybe they do, but you, as the observer, can say, "Damn, that's a dirty ass fish tank. You should probably clean that." But here's the thing: is when you sometimes clean up that environment, guess what? Sometimes the fish die. They don't always thrive in that new environment. So, have you seen cases where you get people to that point of like cleaning up their subconscious, and you start helping them get through their symptoms of what they believe is them, their fibromyalgia, whatever it might be, and they don't do so hot. Like they're like, damn, now I have this new awareness. My lights are on. I can see again. Like, have you had moments where you're like, you get somebody through this rehab stage of this holographic manipulation therapy, and they're like, oh boy, there's no more dirty fish tank. The room's made up. My house is in order. What's next, boss? Like, that's a huge reality.
Well, here's the thing. One of the things that we have to realize with people, in fact, I've had a number of guests on my podcast recently, and one of the reoccurring questions that I always post for them is this: how do you know when someone's ready to actually heal? How do you know when someone's actually ready to let that? Because
what happens when they do heal?
Well, what you're describing is two different scenarios that I call the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is, we can relate it to what's called Plato's allegory of the cave. If you've never looked at that, I encourage you to look that image up. Allegory of the Cave by Plato. And what you'll notice is a big scene where there are slaves chained to a wall deep down in a cave, and they have only known this their whole life. They grew up in a cave, confined, and
I've heard of this.
They're chained to a wall. So this is exactly where we're going, James. Bear with me for a moment. They're chained to a wall. They're convinced that this is real. Behind this wall are cloaked figures that have objects that they do this with, they hold up, and there's a fire in the background that casts shadows on the wall. These people chained to the wall that only knew this are convinced these shadows are real. Okay? They're convinced that's all there is. Now imagine a slave breaking free of that chain, climbing out of the wall, climbing up the wall, noticing the cloaked figures holding these silhouettes up, noticing the fire, noticing the shadows, further climbing out of the cave, making it out, and suddenly seeing sunlight with his eyes the first time. A tree, a glistening lake in the background, birds flying. What happens for every person that would go through this scenario is there's a moment of suffering. There's a moment of suffering because, and I'm going to call it this, it's pain. It's not suffering. It's pain, because they realize everything that they had ever known was not true. So the fish looking at the dirty tank going, oh my gosh, what's next, boss? Now, here's the thing. You have to realize that was an illusion and you're breaking free from it.
Amen.
But now imagine.
That's what I was hoping we were going to get to.
Imagine that slave now that broke free. He sees everything, and he has a painful moment when he realizes that everything he's ever learned was a lie, and it passes, and now he's just at this world. And that's pain. That's pain. Okay? Suffering is when this person that broke free and saw the real world for what it was, not the illusions of the shadows, he would climb back down, move over by the fire, move by that wall, find his family, his friends, his peers, chained to the wall, and say, hey, this isn't real. What you're looking at are shadows. There's a fire over there that's putting this on. You know what
New reality.
you know what their response usually is?
They stay where they are.
You breaking free of this chain and escaping the cave has made you into a madman.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing. And that choice that they make right there of staying chained to the wall and observing the shadows is what is called suffering. Pain is temporary, suffering is forever. And that's what and here's the thing, when I explain it to clients this way, no, I've learned, because that's why we call it practice. Because the more I go through this work and evolve and do it on myself, and my own evolution helps me see things better, the answer, and it's even right here, look at this. Let's just say this right here. How old is this? Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. He will show you which path to take. And that's in Proverbs. Thousands of years old scriptures that have a wisdom within them. The answer is right here in front of us in these ancient texts and these ancient scriptures beyond the Bible. And what it is whenever a person learns how to put their awareness on something other than their problems, their life only changes to get better. But they have to be willing to go through the pain that's temporary or stay in the suffering that's forever.
Dr. Gabe, I got to jump in here, and it's interesting. You and I have a lot of common acquaintances and friends and colleagues. I think it's so cool. I don't know why I was surprised. This is maybe the wrong word to say, but a number of years ago, I befriended a fellow that we both know named Jason Christoff. And Jason's a really interesting fellow. If y'all aren't following him, find him, follow him. He's incredible. But then I saw, how social does this, like, you have people that you know together, and your name was on there. And at first I was like, oh, that's cool. And second I was like, well, that makes total sense. And I want to come back to this idea of the cave, and we've broken free as slaves, and the veil has been pulled back, like the wizard has been exposed. And we have, in some ways, some new inherent power that we can choose to grab a hold of. But also, it can be scary. Power can be scary. And when you do pull the veil back, and like you said, I think everybody on this call and a lot of our listeners have been in this situation, and we go and we try to talk to who we think are very reasonable, open-minded friends, colleagues, families, whoever they happen to be. And like you said, it's not received well a lot of times. And I find that really curious as just a human behaviorism, but I've come to understand that liberation and that fear of power, that you're not just breaking free, like it's not just a breaking free. There's also, boy, I'm struggling with this, but I understand what I'm trying to say. There's also a leaving behind. I mean, there's that quote, to be the person that you are going to become, there has to be a death of the person that you were. And I think that death of the person that we were, I mean, if we're moving on and we're not bringing our friends and families and colleagues with us, I mean, where's our tribe? Where's our, anyway. Yeah, James, go ahead. Help me fill in what I'm trying to say.
I want to group tackle this with you. And I'm going to come hit it from a different angle, because I think what you did is teed it up the right way, and I'm just going to come clean it up.
Thank you. It needed cleaned up. So thank you.
I look at it as addiction, because Dr. Gabe opened up his origin story with addiction. By the way, guys, I'm going on 7 years sober of alcohol.
Let's go.
So when people go through this phase, they have to create a new reality for themselves. And this is the exit velocity at the 0 point that you're talking about. Once you get somebody to that 0 point of reality, now you can hit this exit velocity of a new reality. Some people want to go back and believe that the cave is the only place to live because that's what made sense to them. But when you fight for freedom of recovery and you get out of it, now you have this new reality that we're discussing right now. And I think that that's the most beautiful part about this conversation today, is how do we get people better faster, the anchor of the show. And I believe that we have to go into the subconscious. We have to go into the symptomatology. We have to go into what happens when we actually get you into a recovery phase, because that's where the new reality starts for so many people. And I think this is what Dr. Jason was like, edging towards, is when you go through and you walk through and you realize that we are fractals of light, and we start illuminating at a different frequency, people start to see us different. We start to see ourselves different. And then the world becomes a new thing for us to go discover again. And I think that that's one of the most profound things about what we're talking about today is we get a chance to foster people into a new reality with the work that you're doing, Dr. Gabe.
Yeah. I think to kind of talk about what Dr. Jason was mentioning here, I started with Jason Christoph years back. I don't follow the group anymore because here's the thing. The most valuable thing you have is your attention, where you put your attention.
Yeah.
If people want to get better faster, the first thing they have to do is be aware of where they're putting their attention, where they're putting their focus. Because one thing I can guarantee you, without a doubt, if a person has a symptom or a pain or an ache and they focus on it, it's guaranteed to grow.
Mm.
It's guaranteed to grow. It's guaranteed to become part of their life after a while. And it's not that there's a biomechanical or tissue damage thing going on. It's that they're giving it attention. Their brain is growing.
Mm.
Whatever you put attention on grows. Thoughts are real things that affect other things. That's what thoughts are. I don't know if you're familiar with Cleve Baxter. Ever heard of Cleve Baxter?
Oh.
He was the FBI's most trusted polygraph analyst at one point in the United States. And he ran a school where he taught high-end government workers, special forces, things like that, the art and science of lie detection. Cleve Baxter had a school where he taught FBI and special forces lie detection. Guess what he did? He actually had a lie detection machine, a polygraph, and he stayed up really late one night. And when you have these moments, this is whenever you can actually be a little more aware. When your conscious mind kind of checks out and you actually can tap into that intelligence a little bit more, you're going to what I would call a trance a little easier. That's what happened to Cleve Baxter. And one day he decides, hey, I'm going to hook this Dracaenium plant up to this polygraph test. He hooks the leaves up to a polygraph machine, a lie detector test, and goes, I want to see if I can get it to read a needle. I want to see if I can get this machine to show a response the plant has. He dunks the leaves in hot coffee, nothing happens. And then he goes, I know. If I'm doing this to a human subject, I have to threaten their life. I'm going to burn one of the leaves. The minute he got burning the leaf in his mind, the needle jumped. And it flabbergasted him so much that he reproduced a number of studies that obviously, though, when you're talking about these kind of things, 17,500 universities versus 50 universities, nobody wanted to fund it. They ostracized him, all those different things. But he used the scientific method to demonstrate just thinking about burning a leaf of a plant made the machine jump. He actually did all kinds of other similar tests to that. That's why I told you earlier, thought is the most powerful one. And where you put your awareness is where attention grows. So I had to stop following Jason Christoph a while back because it's like every meme is making you think about something that's less than ideal, less than healthy, about something that can potentially put the brain in danger.
Well, I think that's an interesting perspective for sure. And I've heard that perspective from a few people. That said, I do have a question for you though, because what we put our attention on, what we put our intention and attention on is really, what we manifest or what becomes, whether it's about us or our reality and et cetera. But I wanted to jump back. It seems like to myself, and I won't speak for others, and this is one of the reasons I try to stay off of television, news. I just don't buy into. I used to buy into it, and I used to be really involved with it, and I don't know, somewhere between an activist and a crazy person sometimes, and it would drive me crazy. I even wrote for a political magazine called The Rebuttal. I was deeply, deeply entrenched in this, and now I see it as nothing but like the latest fear, the latest fear, the latest fear, the latest fear, and division and division and division. And it's exactly what we're talking about is the fear state, it's the division state. And I feel also having, I don't share this with everybody, but I also have a master's degree from the Adler School of Journalism at the University of Iowa, the second best school of journalism in the country, right after Columbia. Let's go. But I have a master's degree in media framing. So when I watch this stuff, so I'm very clear with everybody listening, the media is framed specifically to keep you in fear and divided. Anyone saying anything other than that is either oblivious or don't want to believe themselves, or they're part of the machine. But I'm telling you, as a graduate, a master's degree graduate that's taught at universities and taught media framing, we're being fed specifically a narrative, and that narrative is fear and division. So, Dr. Gabe, I want to come back to what we put our attention on is dictates a lot of this, right? It can change our emotions, it could, right? And then that can manifest. Can you talk to, can you talk to this specific piece? And also, if I'm right, why would people in power want to keep us in fear and divided?
Before you get into this, I just want to give a quick applause to Jason. Like, such an honor to work with this man, such the accolades of a journalist, a healer, a doctor, and such a bright man to be able to do what we're doing together on this path together. So I just want to say thank you, Jason, for clearing the air and letting people know your pedigree and why you're positioned to do what we're doing today with Dr. Gabe Roberts and having him on as our expert speaker on the Get Better Faster podcast, because giving that clarity moment gives people the understanding of why we're doing this project. This isn't just because we want attention. This isn't just because we want to have the number one podcast in the world when it comes to what we're doing. No, it becomes because there are truths out there that people don't have access to, that nobody else is going to go out there and produce. But because of the way that we link up, we can put people on and give subject matter experts like yourself the runway to say, this is the answers. These are the things that people need to hear. And that's why our show is going to become so massively successful, because we are giving people a looking glass that they've never had before.
Yeah, you guys are doing fantastic.
Back to you, Gabe.
You guys are rocking it out. But you're right, Jason, about the narrative that it is so blatantly obvious, and we even saw it proliferated during the events of 2020. Okay, more separation. More separation. I think
literally, I want to say not just the division and separation, but like literally a physical separation. Stay in your house. Don't see anybody. Be separate.
Don't visit your old folks in the old folks centers. Don't go see funerals. Don't go see births.
If your own family is sick, put them in a room separate from you too. Like, it was insane.
I couldn't go over to people's houses for Thanksgiving.
It was ridiculous.
So here's the thing, even amongst families, and I definitely saw that in my own clients. I saw that the illusion taking hold of people's lives. And that's really what this all is. Here's the good news. It's an illusion.
Uh-huh.
And even what Jason Christoff gets off of being part of the tribe, which is, our deepest, most primal brain. Here's what we have to realize. If we're looking at our reptile brain, our paleocortex, it is very much group based. Okay. It's very much, if we stay in the crowd, if we follow along, we survive. And there's been a number of studies. There's studies that show the paleocortex is sensitized to people of authority, the people in white coats. Okay. There's a part of your brain that's sensitized to comply with authority. But here's the thing. When we're looking at the brain, the primal brain of how it responds, we're not going back far enough. What I mean by that is, if you're thinking, well, I got to be part of the tribe, you're operating from a reptile brain standpoint. Now, let me ask you this. What if you could put your awareness, because this is a gift we all have. It's a gift we all have. If you could put your awareness on tapping into that very, very 0 point field where all frequencies originate from, do you know what the side effect of that is? The side effect of doing that, the side effect that I bring every one of my clients to, and I even did it in a group the other day on our class Monday afternoon with our Psychosomatic University students. I guided them to do it. They all felt it. The side effect of actually merging with that 0 point field that we all have access to, that we can only get to with our awareness, is a huge, huge sensation of wholeness, oneness. And when you're there, guess what? You don't lack. You don't have any loneliness. You don't feel like you're missing something. You don't feel like you're separate from something else. Everything is right then and there. And I even had a woman who is, one of the things that she wants to resolve is lacking of finances. When I took her to that spot, I said, tell me about that lack of finances. She goes, it's not even there anymore, because you're actually at the point where everything in the universe comes together. And we have this wonderful gift to be able to go that with our awareness, whether we're doing it thinking, And I do this all the time through the day when I'm driving, when I'm outside in the swimming pool, when I'm even doing yard work. I'm constantly putting my attention on this originating frequency, which everything starts from the universe. And when you're there, you get such a sensation of wholeness that you don't judge others. You don't judge yourself. You don't feel like you're lacking anything. And you don't even feel like your health is there's something you don't have anymore. It all exists there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Absolutely. And then this is that transitory state that we were talking about, is this new reality. And as you guys have both mentioned, energy flows to where our attention goes to where energy flows, and whatever you're paying attention to. And if you clear that, what you're telling me, you did this group clearing, you allow this lady to go back to the old playbook of Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And now
I have that in my notes to bring up. I'm literally, I just wrote down the words "Think and Grow Rich," Napoleon Hill. Yeah. Listen, great minds think alike. We just witnessed it here. This is brilliant.
Right. And it's not, and here's the thing. It's not just grow rich too. It's grow rich in experience. Because like I said, talked about this, there's a high level of people out there that are making wealth about, my wife just wrote a book called Spiritual Guided CEO and Spiritual Led CEO. And here's what this was: a collaboration of years and years and years of hiring high-end coaches for a huge fee that I could name off a huge amount of names that wouldn't do any good. But what happened was they were operating from lack each time. Yes, they may have $100 million. They may have real estate. They may have this and that physically, but spiritually, they are they're lacking. They're not even. I know of people that are worth $100 million. The wife and husband go on vacation for a week. They pay a very high fee to go on some beautiful resort somewhere. They go there for 2 days and leave and go back home. They cannot even enjoy the moment. They can't even enjoy their vacation for the full week because they have to feel like they get back to work. $100 million in the bank. Now, I'm just going to ask you, was that living?
Right.
Not at all.
Right.
So it's not just rich in finances. It's rich in wholeness, having everything you want, whatever that might be.
I want to say yes to all of that. And it reminded me of a brilliant friend of mine, coach Matt Lohman, down in Texas. I love this man. He was just giving me wisdom before I even knew what wisdom he was giving me. And he told a story. I mean, he was shocking. He's like, I'm going to say what he said. A couple of things. If you show me your bank account, I can show you where you put your attention. And I thought that was an interesting perspective, because people move their money where their attention is, right? And I thought that was interesting, just something to think about for all of us. The second thing he said is, how many zeros are enough? And what he meant was, how many zeros in the bank account? Is it 1 million, 10 million, 100 million, 1 billion? Like, he's like, I promise you, this is what he said. I'm telling you what he said. As someone who had chased money, there's never enough zeros. There's always someone that's earning more than you want to earn more. And he's like, and it's a game that you're playing and it's never enough. It's never enough. And it's a house of cards. So Matt challenged me.
Not a big line right here every time.
Yeah. Yeah. Matt challenged me. He's like, he told a story of a friend of his that had made a bunch of money and sold his business and like had more money than you could ever spend in a lifetime for him and his kids and his kids and his kids, But the guy devolved into addiction and really almost like a recluse. And like after he did all of this, it's almost like he lost his purpose. So Matt really started thinking about purpose and intention at this point. And he's like, we need a purpose that's outside of the identity that you tell yourself that you are. So I'm like, so he said to me, like, what's your purpose? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm a good dad. I'm a good doctor. He's like, no, that's bullshit. Like, that's just shit that you do. He's like, what's the purpose? And it took me a long time, Gabe, to finally come up with words that make sense, that are like, my purpose is in all of my actions and interactions to leave the world a happier, healthier, and better place. I mean, I can do that no matter what the heck I'm doing or who I am or how I identify. And that driving purpose has like elevated at least my grace to myself and and let go of those zeros in the bank accounts and chasing whatever it happens to be that we're chasing. But when you were telling that story, about being rudderless and spiritually defunct, like separate from God, universe, all of it, it can feel very yucky, and I think that Matt was saying the same thing. Jim, sorry, go ahead, James.
Yeah. It's called input asphasia,
Mm,
whether it's information, whether it's emotion, whether it's money. When we get too much of it, we become consumed by it and we
mm,
become distanced from it. And back to what Gabe was saying earlier.
Anything you're attached to, you'll lose.
Yes.
mm,
Yes. And
mm,
you can even see it in zealots when it becomes too inflamed with religion, too inflamed with politics, too inflamed with anything of if you become too inflamed with education. If I came on here and I only used big words and people couldn't understand what I was talking about, they would tune out. But
Mm.
that's the point I wanted to make next is people will only say the words that they want to use. And there's 3 levels of this. This is for you, Dr. Gabe, because I know this is going to speak right to your work. There's things they will say, there's things they won't say, and there's things that they'll never say. And you can see that in their physiology, like you're saying, the line on the face. And you can see it, Dr. Jason, from the messages in their bank accounts. You can see it and the behaviors in their personal relationships. There's things people will say that they won't say, and things that they'll never say. And that goes right to the core of how you get people to get better faster with your work, Dr. Gabe. And there's this quote that I really used to love, and I never used it in any show before, but don't walk through my clean mind with your dirty feet. And I think that that's a big thing about the messaging that Dr. Jason was talking about with the programming. We all have these really beautiful, clean minds, but over time with titration of message, it creates this dirty fragment within our subconscious. And that starts to take this control and gives us mission and message that isn't ours. It's not ours. We would never take that stuff, but it's because of the outside effect of what becomes. That's the injury. It's the messaging that becomes the injury inside of the subconscious of people of why they become primed and they need your help, Dr. Gabe.
It becomes an injury if it's not serving them.
Amen.
So if it's not serving them and, it's not, if they're not happy with the results in their life and their happiness and their health and their material wealth, because I will say this, even though I'm talking about having everything, it is important to be able to take care of yourself financially. Very important, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And that's our birthright. And here's the thing, when you can actually connect with that 0 point field, you feel such a degree of wholeness. And the beautiful thing about that is that's when you have the most impact on all matter below it, including your body, life, your relationships, everything. But when you're at that wholeness, when you're at that degree of wholeness, you're not trying to fit in the tribe. You're not trying to please others. You're not trying to say things that will make you look good to others. And that's when you were talking about the 3 things, the second and the third are because people, it's not because they're being authentic. It's because they're afraid. It's because they're afraid of how other people are going to view them.
But you can also tell when somebody's so on fire for their own truth, they'll show up into the room. And just like Dr. Jason and Rachel, when we go to events, all eyes are on us, man. People know that some rays of light just showed up and they know that the real deal has arrived. And there's also a difference when you can see when people's house is in order with their emotional state, their physical state, their financial state. When they show up, the room turns to them. So I think what you're doing with your work is critical because you can turn these people into that type of an individual that demonstrates those behaviors that when they show up to places, their old patterns are broke and they get to show up as that real powerful person that we were all born to be. A birthright, like you said.
Getting them back to their original self, basically. Here's what's really cool. You know the mark I'm talking about on the face? Here's what's really fascinating. When that trauma or that emotional dissatisfaction is fully resolved, the mark actually goes away.
Oh, wow.
Amen. You can see it in the forehead too.
Yeah. This right here, I'll just share this with you. This right here, and these all have a purpose. this right here, this is a line that is known as a hanging blade. When you look at someone, like if you don't mind, lift up your hat just a little bit so I can see right here between your eyebrows. Okay. So yeah, both of you, I can tell. You see how smooth this is right here between your eyebrows?
Mm-hmm.
Both of you have had good experiences with authority growing up in some way. And what that's done is it allowed you to do very well in corporate world. Is that true or not true?
That's interesting, Gabe. I've never been asked that question.
Right.
I've always felt, I'm answering transparently. I've always felt and maybe been told that I have an authority complex because I fight the system. But if I just remove that and I think back, I didn't have it in my immediate tribe, my family. But what I did have is I gravitated toward a lot of, whether it be our family doctor, whether it be our pastor,
Someone.
person. Yeah, but I spent a lot of time with these people in authority and learned so much from them. And I'm sure that's what we're speaking to right now.
That is.
I've
Yeah.
never thought about it before.
Now, if you look at mine, you can see obviously it's not smooth like yours. I have this line right here, and this line shows that I did not have good experiences with authority growing up. I never knew my dad.
Mm.
My mom's a whole different story, right?
Mhm.
This is just one of those imprints. This thing was so deep. It looked like you could take a knife, and it looked like it had never seen the light of day.
Mm.
And as a result of realizing this and working on that, it's difficult to see in the light, but if I turn this way, you can see it's quite superficial.
Mm.
And that acts like a block. People that have a line down, now I have one on the little bit more left, but you'll see these on people. When they have a line down the center of their forehead right here, that means that they have expressed anger in a way where as a child, they expressed anger and the repercussion came back so much that,
Mhm.
that they sunk it down and they said, okay, I'm not going to express that anymore. And it becomes what's called a hanging blade. And as they go through life, that thing will get deeper and deeper and it will
Wow.
up, stick in their foot, and they'll stop forward progress. You'll see
Wow.
people want to manifest and they say, I want to create this and I want to create this business. And they get all the right training, they do all the right stuff, and just they can't launch. And they'll have this huge thing here. And I can tell you, I resolved that. Everything opened up for me in new ways.
Wow.
The subject here, but we're talking about that prism and the injuries and
Mhm.
things like that happen, and we can see that plain as day on the face. There's even certain smiles you can see on certain people that you can always tell there's potentially cancer proliferating because of a huge amount of repressed emotions.
I just want to answer because Jason got his chance to answer that question is I've always bucked the system. And you could probably tell from the cadence of my delivery of how I talk, I'm always looking to settle the score with truth. That's a definitive answer to you is I have huge abandonment issues. My pops left when I was 5, anything that I could have got into and done wrong, I did 5 times. And, I grew up running the street, just all the things. So to say that I'm on the show today with 2 educated doctors talking about things that matter to like the core of humanity, it's because of the justice in my tone. The thing that you see the smoothest, it's not because of a corporate identity. It's because of a justice identity. And I believe that if we have enough of that language within us, we can be the megaphone for people that don't know where to go or who to trust. So I look at this as that line that you see of smoothness wasn't because I wanted to step in line for corporate. It's because I wanted to step in line for humanity.
Mm.
And I learned through my own misgivings that people don't need to make the same mistakes that I made to give themselves permissions to be great. And I think that that's the real reality of why you see that clarity in me is because there is a symbolism for me to be a rebel, but there's also a
Mm.
symbolism of me to settle the score and give people clarity.
First of all, I just want to give a shout out to my brother and partner, James, over here, because that was beautiful. I felt that. And I've known you for a very long time. And one thing that I can say is that I love you out better or worse. You're consistent. Your message is consistent. Your truth is consistent. Your actions are consistent. Yeah. So I just want to say yes and thank you for being you. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
I have a couple of questions. Well, I have one big question. I got to go back a number of minutes in our conversation. because Dr. Gabe, you talked about something that we have not talked about, and you mentioned Psychosomatic University. So I just want to go back to that. Um, we kind of glanced over very quickly. Can you just tell us what is Psychosomatic University?
It's a university my wife and I founded, okay, especially her, but it is where we teach all manner of doctors the things that they aren't learning in their conventional training. And this is all manner of doctors, functional medicine doctors. We have a functional medicine doctors, chiropractors. We even have an attorney as a student. We just had a psychologist sign up as a student. And basically we equip them to become super healers by understanding the mind, the concepts behind it, how to resolve childhood trauma. The problem is there's trauma has become such a catchphrase in our society today. It's thrown around very loosely and oftentimes very carelessly. And many times, I hate to say this, but I hear professionals that talk about it and they really don't understand the depth of what they're talking about. It's just one of those things that needs to get addressed. So our university basically teaches them the most powerful methods for resolving trauma and understanding this mind, body, spirit connection. And essentially, here's the thing that's beautiful about this. James was asking earlier, is there ever a moment you can have somebody get worse? No. Connecting a person to their universal intelligence, to God, to divinity, to source, to oneness, to wholeness. See, I don't even like the word health anymore. I like the word wholeness. When we show a person how to connect, we can't do it for them. We can only show them things in the way. And James was asking about it. I'm sorry, Jason was asking about his back pain. I said, well, first impression, what comes up? Oh, I don't even have to think about it. It comes right. That's the real answer. Now your rational brain might kick in and say, well, it couldn't be that. I'm not afraid of nothing. But the truth is something that is outside of your awareness, right? So we teach professionals how to become super healers by guiding their clients, their patients to connect to this source on a much better way. And the results are absolutely amazing. Again, because there's 17,500 universities, only 50 of them study the body, and we're one of those 50. So
I've mentioned before that I've been to medical conferences, like standard, regular family practice type stuff, or whatever, ology type stuff. Fill in the ology that you want. And I've been in presentations, discussions where this kind of stuff sort of comes up, and I'll let you know behind, like in those rooms, doctors are very uncomfortable. What I mean in those settings, not in your setting, but at these other settings. And they say things like, that's not my job. and I'm going to say what they say, I'm a real doctor. Those emotional things and thoughts and narratives, all that crap that's the psychologist. Like, that's not real science. I do this other stuff. And I just want to say that there's a huge disconnect, even with, like you said, functional medicine doctors, the doctors of root causes, where we're still, a lot of times focusing on chemistry, focusing on, whatever. And we need all that stuff too. But again, I've said it like 15 times on this call today. The longer I do my job, yes, we need all that stuff. But if you don't have that nervous system regulation, if you haven't gone through that depth of understanding yourself, your wounds, and doing the work, break through the illusion and all that. I mean, we can do all the other healing modalities in the world, and you might get a little better temporarily here and there, but it just doesn't seem to stick. So I think the work that you're doing is just so darn important. And again, for our practitioner listeners, or you said a lawyer too, so I don't know if you'd be a practitioner. People that are interested, it's psychosomaticuniversity.com. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Real easy. Psychosomaticuniversity.com. You can go there, learn more about Dr. Gabe, Dr. Tiffany's programs, taking a look at that. But I think I'm even saying, like, legitimately, I have 3 doctorate degrees. I'm just, I'm board certified in like 72 areas. I'm teasing. I don't know what it is. It's a few. Doesn't matter. I've never once in any of those trainings, other than in like the parts of functional medicine that sort of talk about this stuff, they don't really dive deeply. It's not like, no matter what you're doing, do this. This needs to be addressed. It's almost like, and I make a joke that any doctor could be an alternative medicine doctor and like a natural medicine doctor if they just tell people to like eat real food and meditate for 20 minutes a day and tell them nothing else. And that's the depth of like how now you're the cool hippie doctor doing the woo-woo stuff because you're saying that, but it's so much deeper than that. Like you said, when we start saying like talk about your traumas, it's so much deeper. It affects our physiology. And from the doctors that work in that physiological presentation, they're just missing that connection. What can we do to help doctors get to your university and learn what they need to learn? I really mean that. What can we do?
Well, first, we have to have an understanding that what you're describing here could be summarized just by this. We separate the mind from the body. We do that in the Western world. And I noticed that I'm certified through Functional Medicine University.
Yeah.
I've went to many different functional medicine conferences. And you're right. If they are going to talk about mind body stuff, it's going to be very superficial, very vague, and give advice on trauma that it sometimes is even more devastating. I went to a conference last year with 1,700 functional medicine doctors around the world to hear a trauma speaker. And what I heard was I'll just say this, absolutely disgraceful. Okay. We separate the mind from the body, and we're not interested in that stuff that is not tangible physical things. We always have to have something physical causing the problem. If it's a non-physical construct, we aren't interested. It always has to be a parasite or a heavy metal or a subluxation or this or that. And one reason it's so difficult for doctors to wrap their head around this is because I've had Vessel Vanderkop. I actually talked with him on Zoom at one point. I said, why is this a problem? And he says that doctors they have to pass board exams. Just like me, I have to get my board through like a chiropractic, right? We have to have simple problems and simple solutions for us to get boarded and recognized. Outside of that, the minute you start talking about trauma, you start talking about generational trauma, you start talking about stressful life events, things like that, it goes outside of their awareness. And here's what I noticed. Doctors, they will hint at this stuff, but doctors are afraid of many times to look at their own stuff. They're afraid of doing the shadow work. When a person comes into our university, one of the first things I tell them is, look, you want to have a success in your practice and your own life. The first thing we want to do is start helping you clear out your own stuff, because it's only going to improve your life in all ways. Nobody feels worse when they start clearing out their baggage and they start clearing out those injuries, those scrapes, those bruises, those warps in their prism. They only start feeling better, and it's reflected in the clientele they start working with. Okay. One of the things that I always tell people is, if you're wanting to help someone heal, you're only going to help them to the degree that you've healed yourself.
I just want to jump in on a couple of things, and yes to all of that. I mean, there's an old quote, I don't know who it's by, but physician heal thyself, right? I mean, it's very important. And I think we forget about those things. But I also just want to speak to how deeply ingrained what we're talking about is. I want to go back to the 1600s to Rene Descartes, and it's called the Cartesian dualism, where the mind, what Dr. Gabe talking about, Descartes said, the mind and the body are separate. There's a distinct separation between the mind and the body. We weren't even talking about spirit at the time. Now we talk about mind, body, spirit that are probably all connected. But that was in the 1600s. We are literally 400 years later. And let me say this, Descartes didn't come out of a vacuum. I mean, he's just the guy that spoke what it was being talked about. So, I mean, it didn't come out of a vacuum. So who knows how long before that it was being discussed. But nonetheless, for 400 years, every doctor everywhere that's bought into Western medicine, which is basically the whole flipping world, has been told for 400 freaking years that the mind and the body are separate. Think about what we're up against. I mean, that's why there's only 50 out of 17,500 schools even talking about this. It's because of some Yahoo back in the 1600s that everyone's like, that guy's real smart. But I'm not one that says the science is settled. I'm one that says that science is always questioning and pushing forward. So I just wanted to bring that up, that what Dr. Gabe is doing for our listeners, I mean, this is taking on, I don't know, 400 or 500 years plus, of misunderstanding, intentional or unintentional. Again, say thanks to you for taking that on, because that's a big monster to wrestle. It really is.
It is a big monster, and there's a lot of things there's a lot of reasons why that this paradigm is shifting slow. Remember what I talked about with telepathic? I said six times greater than the effect of an aspirin preventing a heart attack. Just think about the implications for just a moment. If everyone started realizing that they themselves can go to oneness where everything exists, and they can suddenly tap into this and we've all done it without knowing it. Have you ever thought of somebody and they called you?
Oh, yeah.
Text you, right? We've all done it. The experiments are there. Ever been stared at? Had the sensation of being stared at? What's up with that? I love whenever I ask doctors that and they go, I couldn't tell you. I can tell you your brain actually sends scalar waves out, and you have a toroid field around your body that can detect through your proprioceptive nervous system sensations, not consciously, unconsciously, and you can sense somebody staring at you through that energetic connection.
Yep. I have a friend specifically I'm thinking of right now that at different times in his life has been in the military, Marines as well, and then after that did some private operations in different companies, so to speak, as a whatever those people do. And he said that the general public would be surprised that their high level operation, just to say what his job is. He said that his main skill set is that he can infiltrate otherwise impenetrable areas and disappear bad guys that can't be disappeared easily otherwise. I mean, it's a high skill set. But they used remote viewing. This is where I wanted to go. And you've been in the military and you know this. What the general public doesn't know is that at the highest end, on the highest operation, our U.S. military uses telepathy.
Right. And here's the thing. So think about this. One reason they don't want this paradigm, and you know this, Dr. Jason, doctors have big egos. They have big egos. But if this information got out to the public and people could start realizing, just think about like your bank PIN number.
Right.
All these things that are private suddenly would go up. So a big chunk of the way that our status quo is operated would come crashing down. So that's a reason why it's not just all doom and gloom, coffee shop on every corner, keeping you a slave. It's not just all of that. There are many things that the way our society operates that does everything it can to keep status quo going the way it is. Yes, there's a huge business. We understand that completely, but the implications of this could just radically turn our society upside down, and we're not quite ready for that yet.
I want to hand it over to James, but it reminded me of that very famous Jack Nicholson quote, I think from A Few Good Men, which is, you want answers, you want the truth, you can't handle the truth. That was my best impersonation. That was horrible, but I think we've all heard that. I think that we
goosebumps in that.
Right? But when you think about it, that's what we're saying, right? I mean, like there's a reality out there that we're not really prepared for as a society, is what I'm hearing. James, I'm going to pass it over to you, man.
Yeah, I'm going to wrap this thing up. It's called tall poppy syndrome. It's when an educator or a doctor grows too tall, they cut their heads off. And that's when you bring new ideas to society. And that's what happens when the educated mind develops and creates a new paradigm, is they shut you up. And that's the problem in this modern education and medical arena, is because the people that are actually getting people better faster don't have a platform to speak on, because they're not bought and sold in big box medicine. And they're definitely not banging the drum for cut it out, drug it out, burn it out pharma shit. So we're talking about topics that are outside of the normal resonance. And to go back to you, Dr. Gabe, you're challenging the social and educational justice for the future of mind and body connection. It's like reading a new book. You don't get new information till you turn the page. And that's what we're doing with this conversation with you today. We're turning the page and creating a new chapter of how people can see the future of mind-body connection. And that's why what you and your wife are doing with that university is so vital to people learning education. It reminds me of what Jordan Peterson's doing with his online academy and making it damn near free. Because the truth will set you free, but you have to know where to go find it. In a world full of so much information, we need guides to give us the pathway on where to go get what we need quicker. Because that's exactly what this conversation did today. It gave people the guides to give information to get to quicker. At this juncture, I do have to ask you, Is there anything we didn't ask you today that you wanted to share with our audience?
I not really, other than just, if you want to change your life, you have to change your level of consciousness. You have to. You cannot solve any kind of problem at the same level of mindset, consciousness, awareness that you had before. And the simplest way to do that is to just start trying to understand that there's a greater intelligence that's governing the world. Call it innate intelligence. But because you are blessed with consciousness, and consciousness just means awareness, where you place your awareness is going to grow. If you can start putting attention on this higher level intelligent form in this thing, if I asked you to do that right now, not with your senses, but with your awareness, just place your attention on innate intelligence. That's a divine, creative, loving intelligence of wholeness, of pure wholeness. You'll notice your body starts to feel different. You'll notice your body starts to change. It starts to feel better. And I will say this, no supplement on earth will do that. No pill, nothing else will do that. Mindset and where your attention goes and the programming and subconscious is so important that this is what I will say. And I know this to be true. It's one of those things that doctors scratch their head about, but this is absolute truth. If a person has a subconscious mindset for self-mutilation, in other words, they are ready to check out, they don't feel like they deserve, life is a struggle every day, they're constantly criticizing themselves deep down, no amount of organic broccoli will save that person.
Right.
If a person has a mindset to where they're completely connected, surrendering to this greater intelligence, letting the flow of life happen versus trying to, get in the way, figure things out, no amount of cigarettes will kill that person. That's how powerful we are.
Absolutely. And I've heard, I mean, we could open up another can of worms here, but just to kind of go with that too, we are kind of what we think, right? Or even sometimes what we don't even know we're thinking subconsciously. And those seeds that are planted, I mean, it's just amazing to be able to go into someone's subconscious and help to root that out and understand it more. Like that abandonment person with the 3-year-old and the sister leaving. I mean, it's just amazing the way that manifests. Dr. Gabe, I have a question. Also in parting, thank you again for your time today. If our listeners wanted to connect with you, either for private consultation, private services, or your group programs, what would be the best place for them to connect with you? How can they do that?
The subconsciouthealer.com is a great website that they can look at some of the things we offer, reach out to us, elevate your field at pm.me. It's in our email address. And then we have a course, breaking-free.com. And we released this course, and it's probably about $5,000 worth of content, 6 hours worth of valuable information, including literature on really how to get harmony with your emotions. Like fear, you were talking about fear a moment ago, like how to really convince your brain it's okay. Because here's the thing, fear is normal. Your brain is convinced that fear is dangerous in some unconscious way, and it manifests as pain, right? So this course allows you to know how to teach your brain that all emotions are okay, how to clear out some of the traumas. And we launched this course, and we did it for free. And we found that a tremendous amount of people, we broke the internet multiple times, registered for it, and very few actually went forward for it. So what we realized is those that pay attention. So we put a $17 fee on it, $17, right? And we noticed that a lot more people actually enroll and follow through. So follow through with doing it. But it's a simple course that I've had people, if you have food allergies, if you have environmental chemical sensitivities, if you have chronic pain and you want to learn how to actually start moving again, it'll teach you how to rewire your brain correctly. All kinds of great information on this course. $17,
That's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah. So tell me all those spaces again. And we'll put the links down below. Let's say those one more time.
Okay. So the subconsciouthealer.com is one.
And then the course.
And then breaking-free. Like the little minus sign. That's what I mean by dash. Breaking-free.com.
Perfect.
Is a way to get access to that course.
That's great. And I just want to say again that I've known Dr. Gabe for a very long time, and I've had my own family members I work with him and his wife. And I love you and I love the work that you're doing. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for sharing as much as you did. I was looking at our clock, and I think 12 minutes into this call, we were like deep in down the rabbit hole already. So, I mean, thanks for jumping right in and speaking the truth and giving people a way out of their suffering, not just their pain, but their suffering. Thank you, Dr. Gabe, for joining us today.
Right back at you, Dr. Jason Bradley. Thank you. And James, it's always a pleasure connecting with you guys. This has been great. I've enjoyed it. And I really appreciate the opportunity.
Go check them out, guys. breaking-free.com, thesubconscioushhealer.com, Dr. Gabe Roberts. You're on the Get Better Faster podcast, man. Thanks for being our guest.
Love it. I appreciate it.
All right. Talk soon.
Love you, everybody.
Thanks for tuning into the Get Better Faster podcast. Join the movement and visit getbetterfasterpodcast.com to find all our episodes, micro content, and resources to help you and your family get better faster.